Yeah, anyway, it's nice to see you. It's been like, I didn't see you this year on the trail.
Yeah, I know, timing wise and stuff, when you came through, it was just away on some other trips, and it didn't line up perfectly. So yeah, I was bummed to not come see you this year, but it's okay. I'm sure we'll see each other again.
But yeah, I'm coming back. I'll see you for sure. And
Yeah.
PA is a great place because Iceman lives there. Are you still based in PA?
Yeah, yeah. I'm living in Lancaster right now, so just southern PA.
Wow, you're like this same place. That's where Iceman is,
But yeah,
Lancaster.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's pretty
that's
cool.
crazy. All right. So yeah, I mean, I asked you onto the show, everybody who's listening. This is Brandon here, and I've known him for a couple of years because he's been always someone who turns up and runs with me during like some record attempt on the Appalachian Trail. And then I just find out the other day that Brandon actually won Hellgate 100K, which is organized by David Horton. I phoned him up to congratulate him, and I just kind of thought, since I started the podcast back up, let's get him on the show and like let's hear, exactly what it takes to win a race like that and what kind of adventure and stuff. Anyway, that's how come Brandon's on the show. And how do I pronounce your surname, Brandon?
Fogerty.
Fogerty. Okay, yeah, because I'm like I learned to write and spell in Australia, so I'd be like Fogarty because I do the phonetical style, and
Yeah, yeah,
Fogarty. Yeah, all right. So all
yeah, yeah. However you
right,
want
okay,
it.
so cool, man. Do you want to? Yeah, yeah. I guess do you want to like we could dive straight in. I mean, do you want to like give a quick rundown of your like like basically I guess ultra most of the people who listen to this podcast are like ultra runners. So when did you start running ultra and since then what has been the journey in between then and now?
Yeah, I had a coach in high school that was pretty influential in my running career as a whole. So he was an ultra runner, and I guess that's where I first got the idea. I was like, oh, this could be cool. I mean, like when you're young, and I mean, I'm still pretty young, but especially in high school, you're like, I could do anything. Like I could go run 100 miles. That's easy, dude. We're running 5Ks at 5 minute pace. So what's a 100 mile? Slower. But so I think that's where the idea really came from first. And then in 2020 was my senior year of high school, and our track season got shut down because of COVID. So I was like, all right, well, if you're not going to let us race, like I'll just go race on my own. I had signed up for a 50K later that summer, and went into it probably a little more big headed than I should have, with a little more confidence of like, oh, I'm going to be able to crush this. This is nothing. And got humbled pretty quickly and bonked incredibly hard. Um, and ended up just kind of run walking it into the finish. So, but I think at the end of that, even at the end of any ultra, whether it goes good or bad, you still get that high and that feeling of like, oh, wow, that was pretty incredible. Like what I was just able to do. So I think from then that was like the first time the switch kind of flicked, and then after a week or two of recovery, your brain just switches back over, and it's like, oh, I need more. So yeah, ever since then, I've just been a couple times a year trying to just go out and suffer as best I can.
What was your coach's name and what ultra had he run that inspired you?
Yes, so Tom Kander was my high school cross country and track and field coach. We would always talk. There's this local, pretty local race up in northern PA called Viaduct. They have a 50 and a 100-mile race. It's basically flat rail trail out and back. And so he would always talk about that, and how he would hallucinate through the night, and just the stuff that he was like eating during a run. And I was like, oh, we could eat and run, like that's pretty cool. Like I love food. And I was like, man, I wonder what it would be like to hallucinate. That sounds kind of crazy. It's pretty epic. So I think, yeah, that was the first kind of inclination of like, oh, maybe this is something that's like, maybe this is my path in life. Like I think maybe it was sent there for a reason.
Did he kind of tell you this on a one-to-one basis, or was the whole class sitting in front of him while he's talking about his hallucinations and stuff?
Yeah,
What was the context there?
he was a great storyteller. It still is, and would always try and incorporate experience that he had racing into giving us like motivational speeches before meets or anything like that. So it was kind of I think it kind of went both ways. There was some one on one, but also just as a group. would throw stories out there from time to time. And yeah, they were always pretty intriguing to me. So I think that's why I ended up pursuing it a little bit later in life.
And then just let me fact checked here. So that you did a 50K, but had you already run a marathon before you did the 50K?
No, that was like my first distance over like maybe 18 miles was the longest I went in training. I don't even know if I hit 20 miles. So yeah, I just kind of threw myself right into the fire on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, more and more people I think people used to just like always think of it as a progression. Like first I'm gonna run marathon and then I'm gonna run 50K. But I have heard, over the past decade of people just like, okay, I'm just gonna run 50K. And that's the entry point.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone there. Okay, so then do you kind of count how many ultras you've and marathons you've run and what your personal bests are and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's funny. Borton asked the same question right after the race. At that point, my brain was still like pretty fried, so I think I just threw a random number out there.
Made it up.
Yeah, ultra wise, I guess probably maybe like 12 or so, 10 to 12, I would say. And then yeah, I ran my second official like road marathon this year, back in October, up in at Wineglass in New York, and I was able to run a 2:38 there. So I was quite pleased with that. And then yeah, as for 50K 50 mile, like my 50, I would like to go run another fast 50K, and try and get the time down, but right now it's a 3:56 on trail. And then yeah, my 50 mile it came from JFK last year, and that's a 6:50.
Wow.
So
Yeah, so like you're a fast runner, and I remember when I was out with you thinking, wow, this must be so slow for you because we weren't going in minutes per mile, we were going like miles per hour pace. It's like,
yeah.
okay, it's all good. It's 3.5 miles an hour on the Appalachian Trail. Yeah, so that's pretty fast. Then I did see that. I was looking at your Instagram, like you did two sub 240. I think that's a pretty cool benchmark. I personally have run sub 250. I've run 248. And yeah, I guess that's the next progression. So like, what was your previous PB before the sub 240? What was your marathon time?
Yeah, that was in 23 at Steamtown, and it was a 2:48
And then
before
like
this.
prior to that, remind me, how many marathons have you run total? Like kind of road fast marathons?
Just two really, just two like
Two. Wow,
official
that's
road
so cool.
marathons.
So
Yeah.
you just went straight in there and you got a sub 3 hour straight away. And
Hmm.
like let's talk about that. Like how do you we're gonna get to Hellgate for everyone listening as well, because that's of course that's really exciting, but I want to kind of put some foundation down. How do you kind of run your second marathon, your first marathon in like 240 something and your second in 238? What kind of foundations are you putting down to be able to run that fast? What kind of speed? Maybe you could talk about like some of the speed works you would do or any hill sessions, or would you do any strength, or what how do you get so fast?
Yeah, I think, and I've always like tried to keep this a balance between ultra running and racing, and then switching over to the shorter, faster stuff. I think it is important to maintain at least a little bit of that speed, even if you are racing ultra distance all year, and never stepping down in distance. But so I think a culmination of that was just some speed that I had left over from high school and college running, and I was able to build on that just a little bit while obviously maturing in the sport and just physically as well, getting a little bit older and stronger, so I was able to incorporate that into long runs and just maybe do some track sessions, or the coach that I work with, and we do a lot of like fartlek sessions, so 2 minutes on, minute off, type of deal. Kind of change that how you will, but
Have you ever
yeah.
done any kind of like any hill repeats or anything like that?
Yeah, it's funny. My high school coach and college coach were both huge on hills. So at least once a week, we would hit kind of like the biggest hill in the area for our hill repeats. But sometimes it would be more than that, maybe twice a week. So yeah, I think, and I heard this from a friend the one time, but hills are really just silent speed, in my opinion. Um, so anytime you do hill workout, you might not be running a 5-minute mile necessarily, but it's still strength and it's still speed. And I think it's incredibly important, for any type of racing that you're doing, whether it's flat or 12,000 feet of like Hellgate.
Yeah, I guess the thing is about hills is it creates resistance against gravity. And I was watching Usain Bolt training for the Olympics, and he would run like and he'd have like a waist harness or some kind of harness, and he'd be pulling a weight behind him. So not necessarily like running up a hill, but running against the resistance of gravity. And so I guess running against resistance does build strength, and then when you are flat and you don't have that resistance, kind of that,
Yeah,
I guess, is where the speed comes from, for sure. Yeah, when I was living in Ethiopia, we did a brutal hill session one time, and it was so insane. I think it's been erased from my memory. I can't actually remember. It was something crazy like 2 times 20 repeats. So 20 plus 20 with like something like a 10 or a 15-minute break in between. And I
that's
think each repeat was about 1 minute, 30 seconds. So figure that out. That's like an hour of just uphill hardcore running, in kind of zone four. And
that's
I
crazy.
just remember finishing the session. I was like the last person to finish, but you know what? I got the encouragement that they said, "Hey, you did finish." Is the thing is you will get stronger if you stick at this. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I guess like so how yeah, okay. So what was the jump? Where's the middle ground from 50K to 100K in terms of distance? JFK, okay, that's 50 miles. Yeah. Is there any other races besides that?
Yeah, so last year in 24, I raced Bull Run Run 50 mile, which is also down in Virginia. One of the training partners I train with has raced it for a bunch of years now. And had always talked about how good of a course it was. And it's all trail, a lot of single track, but like very runnable single track. So I had put that on the schedule it's in April each year. So I had put that on the schedule last year. Did what I thought was a very solid training block going in, and went into it with a good amount of confidence, but also just wanted to gain some experience because I hadn't raced a whole lot of 50-mile distances up to that point. So ran it, maybe didn't have the best day. Still did okay, was happy with the performance, and came away with some experience and learning. And then came back the year after. I'm sorry, so I was 23, came back in 24 last year, kind of for some redemption, and then was able to get the wins. That was
Oh,
a huge confidence boost, yeah, to kind of go learn the course, learn what went wrong, and then build on that in training and see that it does pay to have some rough days, and if you could learn from what you did wrong and build on that throughout training, and kind of fix those mistakes, and then to have it pay off, like that was a really cool thing to see and a huge confidence boost of like, okay, there is like a formula to this, and we just slowly have to figure it out.
yeah. Yeah. Just for people listening and for myself, I guess I forgot we definitely had this conversation, but what age are you?
I just turned 24.
24. So yeah, you're really young. Like, yeah, I think we had the conversation like I'm old enough to be your dad. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I could have, if like I would have been a 25-year-old father, the same as my father. All right, so that's crazy, man. I still feel like we're on the same level. Everyone interested in being outside and running trails, I think age almost disappears, and there's just this
Yeah.
kind of positive mindset that we all tap into, this positive energy, and just like it's cool. It kind of equals things out. But yeah, you are young, and like before we get into Hellgate and stuff, like how has this? Have you got a trajectory of what you want to do, Brandon, over the next X amount of years? And was Hellgate part of that plan that you have, or do you not have one? Do you just run how you feel within that year or something?
Yeah. I mean, like for me, and I thought about this a little bit, I guess, over the past year, that I've like really started to feel stronger and fitter, and the races have been going a lot better, and I've been able to just really execute. But I think a lot of that comes with experience though too, maybe like this is the point in one of the first points in my career where I'm like really starting to get enough experience now. I mean, I still have, a huge way to go, but at least have learned a little bit now of what I've done wrong in the past that I've been able to change and can execute on some races, pretty well. And this season has been, quite honestly, probably the best I've had since I started this sport. So that's been really cool to see. But yeah, I think after this year, I'm just slowly wanting to be able to compete at like higher and higher races, and these bigger ones, and where there's more competition, and more people that, kind of a deeper field of runners. So I think maybe this was the first step towards that. But
Yeah.
it also, Hellgate was never really on the schedule for this year. It just kind of came about. I had run Laurel Highland 50K in June earlier this year, and then I didn't really have anything else the rest of the summer. So I was talking with my coach a bit, and the original plan was to run a marathon in early October and then use that as like a big training day in prep for I was going to go back to JFK again this year to try and run a bit quicker. And then kind of one thing led to another. I waited too long and JFK sold out. And I was like, crap, well, that's off the bucket now. So I had signed up for Devil Dog 50K, which was the weekend before. And I was like, oh, well, we still have, the marathon. I was still kind of in the like go fast mindset. So I was like, we'll just go run like a fast 50K to end off the year, and that'll be the close. And I have known about Hellgate, I guess, for a few years now, and David Horton, he's obviously a legend in trail running. So I had always wanted to race it, but didn't really know when. And quite honestly, I was pretty scared of the distance. I had never run anything above 50 miles and still didn't know when I would. On a whim, I just called up a friend and was like, what do you think about applying to Hellgate? Thinking, oh, I'll apply, but there's probably no way I'm going to get in anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And then when I get the email that I don't get in, it's fine. I'll just go run this other 50K and life will be good. And then, so applied, and one thing led to another, and I didn't get picked the first round. So then they pick around 100 runners on the first round. And then if you don't get picked, a second round goes out 2 weeks later where they pick like an additional 50. And so I got the email on round two, and I hadn't even opened the email yet. I just saw like the headline, and it said congratulations, and I was like, shoot, well, we're in now. So I was like, I can't turn down the opportunity. So it looks like we're running Hellgate. Yeah.
So that was your first 100K and you won as well. You got the win. How was so okay, let's go through the process. Maybe for people listening, do you want to like describe Hellgate and what you know about it, including its kind of history and how long it's been around and stuff? That would be quite cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So Hellgate is directed by David Horton, who, in the ultra and trail running community is a legend. I think kind of one of the first ones really to set like a speed record on the Appalachian Trail, as well as the PCT, and has won things like Hard Rock and, just some of the biggest races in the sport really. So it's his, child, if you will, of ultra running. It's a midnight start, so it starts at 12:01 a.m. Saturday morning. It's in Virginia in December, which could be a toss up of weather. It could either be high 30s and clear, or freezing rain, or really it is a gamble. Even the week of, you could check the weather and it could change the day before. Um, yeah, and then it's through the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia. It's advertised
What
as a
what's
100.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to butt in. You can answer as I was going to say, like, what's the elevation profile there as well?
Yeah, so it's advertised as a 100K plus plus, which really means it's 66.6 miles, given the term Hellgate, and has just under 13,000 feet of climbing. So around, my watch at the end had 12,700, but yeah, right around that 13,000 mark on between double track and single track trails.
And like, how kind of, so I've run the Thailand North Face quite a lot, I think 6 times now, and a lot of it's runnable, but I know like how gnarly and how technical is the terrain, or how runnable is it? Is there a lot of, and what are the climbs like? For example, are they like long progressive climbs, or are they kind of like, okay, hands on knees, got to hike up this side of the mountain or something? Kind of talk about like what the terrain is like there.
Yeah, so going into it, I had met a friend. Shout out to Brennan. I had met a friend at Bull Run the year prior, and when I was looking through past results, I saw his name. So I was like, "Oh, no way!" So I had DM'd him on Instagram in the weeks before, and was kind of picking his brain a little bit on about the course and any tips or tricks, that he would have for me, so I could maybe try and implement into training or anything else. But for the most part, I mean, maybe I'll catch some a little bit of shit from this from David, but I mean, it is a hard race. Don't get me wrong. It is incredibly hard. And I've had to dig the deepest I think I ever have to be able to pull that off. But in terms of running, I think it suited me pretty well. The general gist of it is you climb up a fire road or dirt road, um, turn on to single track, you descend on single track back to the bottom of a mountain. It dumps you out onto a dirt road again, climb up the dirt road, kind of descend on single track, rinse and repeat with some single track and double track mixed in between there. But the climbs were very runnable, but also pretty icy in sections. They had gotten snow earlier that week, so which was cool because it was kind of like a proper Hellgate. At that point, there was a section from around mile 10 to 18 ish that at minimum was like ankle deep snow, and then at other times was like shin deep. So even on the climbs, the dirt road climbs were okay, because there were some tire tracks where some either the flaggers had gone up or some other vehicles a day or two before. So made some tracks and kind of patted down some of the snow. So that made it a lot more runnable. But then in the single track sections, even on the descents, and I was chatting with David afterwards, I was like, yeah, man, I was getting pretty pissed at points because you're trying to run downhill, but you were just sinking so deep into the snow that you couldn't really run any faster. You're just kind of getting tossed around in the snow. But yeah, I mean, besides that, for the most part, I would say the climbs are very runnable. Nothing insanely steep, just kind of longer, drawn out stuff. So even towards the end of the race, like if you have the legs for it and could still move, I think you could do quite well.
What was like, was there a section, are there any sections where you can kind of run 6 minute miles or like 7 minute miles like that, or not really?
Yeah, there's some double track sections through the woods that are a little bit flat or like even a little downhill. That as long as they're clear, they're very runnable and you could rip pretty good. There are also some like downhill dirt road sections, especially later in the race. I remember coming into aid station 8. So there's 9 aid stations. Coming into aid station 8 and leaving that, you hit this big descent on this dirt road, which is kind of nice at that point in the race because you could open the legs up a little bit. And yeah, I mean, as long as you're still feeling good, you could definitely rip some miles throughout.
About your competition, were you like running with people? Was there a group of you and did you break off? Like how did the whole race kind of play out in terms of your positioning against the other runners?
Yeah, I had so going into the race, I knew like, or at least I would have liked to think if I had a really good day, I thought maybe I could sneak into the top 10. So like the main goal was just to finish, and get the experience and my Western States ticket and everything. But in the back of my head, I was like, well, if I have a really good day, I think maybe I could sneak into the top 10, just like looking at previous times and whatnot. But I was like, I don't know. This is also like an unknown distance. And so I'm just going to go out into it and, try and run my own race and not really worry about positioning or anything like that. So I had gone out with the front pack and I was like, oh, I'll just stick with them for maybe like 10 miles, see how the pace is. And if it's too hot, I'll just pull back. So yeah, we had a nice group of about 5 or 6 of us, that eventually settled into the first big climb together, had a nice rhythm going up. We hit aid station 2, which was like the first. So crews couldn't go to the first 4 aid stations because of the parkway being closed and, just accessibility and whatnot. So I didn't see my crew for the first 30 miles of the race. So we had hit aid station 2, which was roughly 8 miles or so in. I had refilled bottles real quick, and then I knew that one guy had got out in front of me, but I wasn't sure if there was still one more person like way out in front of him that maybe just kind of blew through the aid station or got out quicker than we did. So I left with 2 other guys on this next, you hit that aid station, and then you have a next big climb after that. So kind of settled into a nice rhythm with them on the climb. Slowly pulled away a little bit on the climb, but then had a nice big descent again. So they kind of caught back up on the descent, got popped out at another climb, started to push steadily up that because I could see the guy in front of us, his headlamp kind of like winding up a little bit. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just try and push for a little bit, see if I can make up any ground, and then we'll go from there. I kind of dropped the 2 guys that I was with and eventually caught up to what I would find out later was the first place guy. about 3/4 of the way up the last climb before hitting aid station 5, which is Jennings Creek. So I thought at the time like I could outclimb him, but also didn't really see a reason to, because we still had half the race left at that point. So kind of pulled back, settled in with him. We finished that climb, got onto some single track, hit a big descent down in the Jennings Creek. I wasn't in front of him on the descent, but then I had to stop to pee. So he's like ran by and he's like, "Oh, I'll see you at the aid station." I was like, "Yeah, sounds good, man." Came into the aid, maybe 20 seconds or so behind him. Had a good aid stop. Really, I was doing 2 packs. So I had my pack on and then my crew had a pack ready for me. Just switched out packs real quick, got some broth, switched out some gloves, and then he had left the aid station before me, but only by a minute or two. And then we had another big climb out of that aid station. So I was like, oh, it's okay. Like, I'm not too worried. My legs still feel good. Like, I think I'll just be able to catch him on the climb. So yeah, left the aid station, wound up catching him on the climb. And then we played a bunch of cat and mouse for the next few miles. I would pull ahead slightly on the climb, but then he would catch me and pass me on a descent. And then, back to climb, descent, went back and forth. And then we hit a section of very runnable double track that kind of wove in and out throughout the mountain, or alongside the mountain. And we were together there. And this was mile like maybe 37, 38. It was all flat. If anything, like maybe slightly down. We were moving pretty good, because I remember looking at my watch, split the one time and seeing a 7, and I was like, "Ooh, this is we're moving a little quick, but it's okay. Like, I still feel okay, so maybe this is okay." Time will tell if this was too quick, and I'm gonna pay for this, in a few miles. But and then yeah, but like still just felt very comfortable and was just trying to find a nice rhythm. So I slowly started to pull away, but I was like, it's fine. Like, I'm sure he's gonna catch me on this next descent, or something like that. That turns into single track, and then you're on like a flattish single track section, and then you have a big switchback single track descent. So we started that descent, and by this time it was just starting to be daybreak. I got to the bottom of the descent. It dumps you into this like ravine, and you run along the ravine for a while. And I remember looking up on the side of the mountain, and he was coming down maybe like the second level or so of switchbacks. And I was like, that was the first time I was really like maybe I did put a little bit of a gap on him, but I was like, also maybe he's just going through a low point, and he's going to catch back up in a couple miles. So don't sweat it. Just like keep doing what you're doing. And then, yeah, that led us to aid station 7, which was the next time I could see my crew. And again, like had a pretty quick crew change, switched out packs, got some more food, massage gunned a little bit, and then just wanted to go and get out of there. And then, yeah, I pretty much I guess that was the move that would eventually win the race. He had never caught back up after that, but I was still pretty paranoid those last few sections. I was looking back a few times on the longer stretches, where I could look back and see, way up a road or way up a downhill or something, because I was just waiting for something to happen, and it still didn't really feel like I had never planned on leading, and again, and it still feels like pretty surreal and pretty cool to think about the day that I had. But even when it was happening, I was like, oh, this isn't like, I'm not going to be able to hold this, or this isn't really happening, like I'm not leading Hellgate, like, this way too early for this to happen. So yeah, just a pretty cool day.
So I guess if you start at like 1 minute past midnight, what time was sunrise? Something like, I don't know, at that time of year, when is sunrise over there?
Yeah, it's like just after 7, so maybe like 7:20 or so.
So that's pretty brutal. Like you're doing like 7 hours of head torch running, headlamp
Hmm.
running, and then you've
Yeah.
got, well, if you win it, otherwise, if you don't win it, well, actually, no, you're still doing the same amount of dark time running, but then you've got like 4 hours of daylight and you're done. And so you said that when you left that aid station, that was, or checkpoint was number 7. And did you say there's 8 checkpoints to the race?
There's 9.
Oh, there's 9. So you went in like the last 3 checkpoints, you were in and out without seeing him then.
Yeah, so the crew could go to 5, 7, and 9. So I
Gotcha.
saw them
Yeah.
at 7, and then out of 7, there's a section called the Forever section, which now having run it absolutely lives up to its name. It literally feels there, and I don't know if it was just that point in the race where like I started to really kind of like feel it a little bit and go into like one of the first like kind of bigger lows of the race after I left them at 7. But to me, it just seemed like there was a mix of like snow. It was mainly ice on the trail, a little bit of snow. It just seemed like there was no flow to the trail. Like you were just climbing, but it wasn't super steep, but like my legs were kind of going through a low, so I had like a hard time really trying to run it. And then there was no like extended downhill to try and open back up, so it was just this like janky kind of weird section for a few miles through the woods. And then I remember coming down, and so from aid station 7 to 9 I had about 15-ish miles or so till I would see the crew again. But there's an aid station in between there, about 9 miles between 7 and 8. So you're on this big kind of downhill dirt road descent before you hit aid station 8. And I was in a pretty deep low there. Um, and my feet were starting to hurt a bit. So I came into aid station 8, and if maybe by some chance they're listening to this, or I wanted to send an email to David too and get their names, but I came into aid station 8 and I was pretty just grumpy and just down and just like whining and complaining. But these ladies at the aid station were just like the sweetest people in the world. And they were like, "What can we get you? What do you need?" We have this and we have this, and like everything that they were listing did not sound appetizing at all. And I was like, no, I'm like, took my bottles out of my pack, and I'm like, could you just dump this out and put this scratch packet in? And like, could you just fill this with water? And I have a salt tablet. And I'm like, I remember saying, I'm like, I'm in a low right now. And like, I know I'm gonna come out of it, but like, I'm sorry. And they're like, just like being still the sweetest people in the world. And then I remember she brought a cup of broth over, and I don't know what kind of broth it was, maybe like vegetable broth or something. But I remember taking like 2 sips, and it was also so hot. And I took like 2 sips, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. It's like, it was probably great. Like if I had it now, it's probably great soup. But at the time, just like nothing was appetizing. So they're just, yeah, they filled up my bottles for me. And then I remember looking at the sign. They had like this little sign propped up against the table, and it said next aid 6.6 miles. And my heart just like sank again. And I was like, I have to go 6.6 miles to the next aid. And they're like, no, 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 no. They're like, don't pay attention to that. Like, uh, they're like, we had to move the aid station down, which was true because I guess it normally sits higher on the mountain, but because of the snow and the access, they ended up moving it lower on the road. And so she's like, it's really only 5.5. And I was like, okay, that's better, I guess, and then so I put my bottles in and just kind of started to like walk down the road and like look at the table as I was walking past to see if anything, sounded good. And they're like, anything else we could get you? And I was like, no, I just need to go. And then, I just carried on down the road. But yeah, so they're just shout out to those people for just being the sweetest.
Yeah. And how long after like leaving? So that's checkpoint 8, of course. Yeah.
hmm
How long after leaving there over that next 5.5 miles did you like come out of that low before you got to see your crew, or like what happened? How long was it before you kind of started to collect yourself? And also the other question, sorry, there's two-part question here. Like, what is a low? Was it like a physical low? Because it sounds like actually you didn't really have any appetite as well, and or was it like a kind of an emotional low, or both? So maybe talk about what kind of low it was, and then how long it was before you came out of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe some of it was the tiredness. Like I had napped a little bit for maybe 45 minutes or so. So the pre-race meeting is at 8 o'clock at Camp Bethel. We were there for a while, probably close to 9:30 or so. And then till we like chatted with the crew and went over some plans. And then I went out to the car, took like a 45-minute nap, which is like the best you can sleep in a car, for 45 minutes. So I think at that point in the race, it was probably 9.5 hours or so into it, maybe 9 hours. So was like the first real inclination of like, oh, I'm getting a bit tired here. And like, this is, which I think also makes sense because that was really like the longest continuous running I had done up until that point. So it was pushing into new territory as well. So my body maybe was like, oh, well, normally we're done and we're still going. What's going on here,
Yeah.
So yeah. And then I think maybe I was eating and drinking very well. I was doing a gel every half hour. And then I was trying to finish a bottle. with my drink mix, at least one of those per hour, which I think in the end, maybe it ended up being roughly like 750 mil an hour or so. Maybe give or take, a little less at different points. But yeah, so I think it was a mix of like the tiredness was starting to set in for the first time. I was also maybe could have got some better calories in. I probably wasn't drinking as much as I should have at that point in the race. And then, yeah, physically, like I still felt good, but the tops of my feet on the descents really started to hurt for the first time as well after I left aid station 8. So I think it was kind of a culmination of everything just onto each other. But yeah, like it's cool though to that I could recognize that now and um, from
Well,
being
it
in
sounds
the
like you're recognizing it like there and then, which is really important because if you
yeah
didn't, you don't know what's going to happen. You just maybe even give up or something. But and then
yeah
so you'd recognize you're in a low. How long was it before you did you actually come out of that and get back to a kind of wow, I'm going to win this race? Like what was the transition from your lowest point to winning the race? How did talk about in between those 2 points?
Yeah, I think I did maybe come out of it, then for those next 2 or 3 miles. And then about a mile or so before I got to aid station 9, I went back into another pretty deep one. And I kept trying to think like, so I actually didn't, I thought I was in the lead, but I actually didn't like verify that until aid station 9 because I came in, was in like the deepest low I had been all race coming into aid station 9, saw my crew, and I was like almost on the verge of tears. Like I was just so ready to be done. And like my feet hurt so bad on the descent. And I was just like, please, like and I just couldn't fathom like having to run. It's 6 miles from aid station 9 to the finish. So you have a 2.5 mile climb and a 3.5 mile descent. And just in my mind, like I could not fathom having to climb 2.5 more miles because um, my legs were just like so tired on the climbs. So I came into the aid station was just like a grumpy mess and saw my crew. Luckily, Brennan was there, my one buddy, and he was in a purple Teletubby costume. So he was like right at the turn that you make to go into the aid station. But like my brain was so fried, I didn't like register that it was him. So I sat down in the chair for a minute, and one of my crew members was like, "Oh, you can't sit down now. Your friend Brennan's here to see you, you know?" And I look up and there's just like Brennan smiling in this purple Teletubby costume. So I like get up out of the chair and give him a hug and like so that kind of brought me out of it a little bit. And so like massage gunned out and I remember like I'm gunning my calf and I look up at my crew and I go, "Am I leading right now?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I go, "Oh, okay, cool." But there was like no other emotion after that. It wasn't like I tried to use that as motivation and like to get myself out of this low is like, okay, you're leading Hellgate right now. Like you've 6 more miles. Like this is cake, dude. You got it, you know? But like nothing I was telling myself was like bringing me up out of this low, you know? And yeah, so I just had walked out of that aid station and yeah, just was kept sipping on some salt tabs that my crew had gave me, and then I left them and started the final climb of the race, and got to the top of that. And in my mind was like, okay, like you're good, dude. All you have to do is like keep moving and you're gonna win this, you know, like this is like, what you've dreamed of, for so long and like through so many weeks of training. But yeah, it's funny, like even that, like I kept telling myself that and it still was like, nope, you're just gonna be a mopey mess. And I'm like, come on, man, like something's gotta bring me out of this, you know? But yeah, that I will say that last mile, like, and like I know we've talked about it on the trail, but I guess even like the last descent. So you have like roughly a 3.5 mile descent to the finish. And I was like running down that and then just like thought of like so many like cool moments. Actually, I guess I was thinking of like it's crazy how like we get to the points in life that we get to in the first place, you know? And I was just trying to remind myself, like, it's crazy that you're here right now. Like, so many things had to happen, and like, you've met so many like awesome people, and like, just trying to think of the things that fell into place in order to like be here right now and even have a chance at things like this. So, yeah, I think I was already like pretty emotional, but that made it like even more emotional, in those last few miles. And then, yeah, I think, I don't know. It's cool. It's a cool memory to have, and like I know we've talked about it before, like kind of the spirituality of it all. And I don't really know if you can get that doing much else in life, unless you put yourself out there to like truly go and suffer. I don't know if you ever reached that like deep of a spiritual moment, which is really cool to have. So yeah, it was cool.
When I'm chopping fruit in the morning, I definitely don't have that same vibe.
Yeah, right.
Chopping bananas for my breakfast doesn't make me cry and reflect on like everything I'm grateful for.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe if I'd like been starving for like 3 weeks or something, I'd be like, oh, I'm so happy to chop up this banana, man. I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, man, it's like so cool that like this is the first time I've actually heard someone talk in such a descriptive manner about the Hellgate 100 as well. Like I didn't really imagine it was single track and fire road and there's some ups and the last 6 miles is made up of 40% climb and then a descent and stuff. It sounds like a really cool race. And like, so was Dave, I guess you see David at the start and you see David at the finish, David Horton. Yeah.
Yeah, I came across the line and just kind of like took a moment, did a lap, and then I like bent over and just like kind of put my hands up to my face and like just lost it. Basically, I just like started to cry a little bit, and my crew was like, "Look up, like you got to see who's here to greet you," And I like kind of bring myself up, and there's Dave there just with his arms wide open, and I was like, "What's up, Doc?" And gave me a big hug, and yeah, that just kind of tied the whole thing.
Yeah.
Reading about and like watching and like seeing stuff online about somebody like David, and then to actually be there and like finish it out with a hug, is like, is this real life? This is like some kid meeting Tom Brady. Like that's my version of that. So yeah, that was a pretty special moment.
So Brandon, had you ever met like David before this race?
No, not at all.
Wow, I never really thought about that. That's cool. So you get to meet like one of your heroes, and a
Yeah,
legend in the sport with, a big cuddle and you're winning his
yeah,
race. I mean, that's like totally
yeah,
surreal.
yeah.
Man. And how many days ago, like, hold on, what is it? We're recording on Thursday, the 18th of December. So you finished the race on what day or what date? Whatever, both.
The Yes, Saturday, so the 13th, I guess,
What?
was technically
Yeah.
Saturday. Yeah.
Okay. So what is that? Like 5 days ago. And how, I guess, okay, moving on from the race, man, congratulations. It's like epic. Actually, no, I do still want to talk a little bit about the race, the actual unfolding of the race. So, did you see your competition come across the finish line, the second place guy?
Yeah, we were standing chatting with Dave, and then he came across almost, I think it was exactly 8 minutes after I did, and yeah, we shook hands and hugged it out, and just said what a cool race it was, and it was cool to really like in these short, fast races. I feel like you're sometimes you're racing more, where it's like back and forth, and you need to know when to make a move and all that, but like in ultras, with it being so long, sometimes there's not a lot of that back and forth. Like you might make a pass once and then that's it, you'll never see him again. But it was cool to like really kind of race with somebody like that and like play that back and forth for a while, and even towards the end of the race like not know if he was going to catch back up, because like when we were together, he was still running very strong. So I just tried to keep reminding myself, like even through the crappy sections of trail and like snow and everything else, like, yeah, you're out here, but so is everyone else. And like everyone else has to deal with the same conditions. And like just because you're going through it doesn't mean nobody else is. And so we're all just kind of out there suffering together. Yeah, it was a pretty cool bond at the end, to realize like what I had to do to get through it, but what like everybody else had to do to get through it as well. Like it is a pretty special race.
Yeah, like it just reminds me of again the Thailand North Face 100K. So I've been, I guess I wouldn't call it lucky. I've worked hard enough to be able to podium like 4 out of the 6 times I've finished it, and I've also got, I think it was fourth position on the other 2 occasions. So like I know what it's like to finish and be with those front runners and celebrate, and it is such a feeling of, wow, I feel like such a connection with these guys. Like we've really suffered and worked hard to get here and get through this race. And I kind of feel that there is a bond, there's this kind of connection that you have with the fellow runners. It's not like they're your opponents and you hate them or anything. It's more of a like, yeah, kind of I identify with you, and I feel,
Mhm.
yeah, I feel like you're my someone who's been through the same as what I've been through. So yeah.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, so 5 days out, and how are the legs feeling, or how are the feet feeling now? Because you said your feet were in pain. So how's the body holding up right now?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it overall. I haven't done any running since the race. I normally take like a week and just kind of do absolutely nothing. Everything is very good though. Like I would say since about Tuesday, like my quads and calves and everything else feels very good. The tops of my feet, like at certain times, if I'm on them for a long period of time throughout the day or walking a lot, maybe start to get irritated a little bit. I think actually after this pod, I'm going to go see a friend and hop in the ice bath. So hopefully that'll help out a little bit. But yeah, as for recovery overall, super stoked on how it's going.
And so, yeah, so that's the recovery. How about where I'm going to go with this? No, it's just actually when you said ice bath, the reason I had to delay podcast a little bit was because I went to the ocean, and I do like 10 minutes of cold water in the ocean a day. And
Yeah.
it's not like ice or anything, but it's pretty darn cold. And because the ocean's moving as well. So,
Yeah.
sorry, you just threw me a second saying that. Is your friend, are you going to go to like a place, or has your friend got an ice plunge or something, an ice pool?
Yeah, he's got one at the house. So I'll just swing over there and hop in for a few minutes.
That's pretty cool. And does he have like a temperature? Does he know what the temperature of the water is?
Yeah, I want to say we keep it around 42 degrees or so. Don't quote me on that, but somewhere in that
Yeah.
range.
Yeah, that's yeah, like I love it. Like when I go to Thailand, there's a ice bath there, and we work in degrees Celsius, so it goes down to like zero
Oh,
point
okay.
0.4 to 0.6. So it's almost freezing, but it's not.
Okay.
And
Yep.
my gosh, it's so cold. I go down to the neck and I just put my hands on my quads. It's like a cheat, to try to keep the palms of your hands warm. Man, but I feel so like just accomplished when I come out of the ice bath. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I just want to ask you a couple of questions, before I guess we wrap it up. If we've been chatting an hour almost, and it's gone by really quick, because just
Yeah.
like I said, listen, I've never really heard someone talk in such great detail about the race, and in my mind it was like something else completely. So I'm really pleased that you've had a chance to share it with me and also people listening. So I guess so we're at the end of 25. What's your 26 season look like? Like what races, if you can talk about it, have you got up and coming, and what are you going to be training for?
Yeah. I really only have one on the calendar for right now in April. It's Heiner 50K. I'm up in northern PA. It's like a pretty good PA classic. I guess maybe even pretty popular East Coast. And then, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'll go back to the 100K distance next year. I might step it back down and keep it 50 miles and under. Maybe I'll go back to JFK. I would like to run another fast one, another fast 50 or 50K or 50 miles. So if it works out, that would be cool. I am toying around the idea of a 70 miler out in Western PA. I went out there and ran the 50K this year, and the trails were super good. Just very runnable and just really, really great trails to be on. Yeah, I don't know. I might go out and do the 70, but again, I don't know. That's kind of far, and just coming off
Yeah.
100K, maybe I just need some more time to
Yeah,
chill out for a bit.
it's
But
5 days, like just enjoy. What would it take to win JFK? What is the what's an average winning time there to win that race?
yeah, Hans Troyer won it this year and almost broke Sinclair's record. It's a low five. It's like 5 range or something like that. 5:12. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, like low 5 hour time, which is crazy. I
Is
think.
that the one who's sponsored by Ultra, and he has that YouTube video about him?
Yeah,
He's just, yeah, yeah,
yeah. I
phenomenal.
think
Yeah,
he
I saw that.
on the rail trails section, he split like a 2:27 marathon, I want to say, in the middle of a 50 miler,
Wow.
which is crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, that's really fast. Wow. Yeah. Well, hey Brandon, like yeah, so what have you taken? So I guess with everything in life, there's a lesson, and we get, or like some insight we have to doing difficult things. So like Hellgate 100 is a really difficult thing. What insights into life or into yourself did it give you that maybe you could share with people, which is, I'm pretty sure it bound to be pretty inspirational. Is there anything that you could share? Maybe even a few things, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, no, just like be grateful for the fact that you're here, and for the fact that we get to do these things. And um, I had a pretty special person tell me one time that we could do hard things, and I truly believe that. And I think this weekend was a an example of that for me personally. And like it's a gift to be able to go out and suffer and to experience what it's like to put yourself out there for something that a few weeks ago thought totally was absolutely 100% not possible. But yeah, I think like there's a lot of people in the world that would give up everything they have to be in a position like you or I, or even anybody that's just out there and has the ability to run these races and to finish. So like just stay humble and stay grateful. Like if you haven't, maybe gone out and done an ultra or anything, to like, it doesn't even have to be an ultra. It could just be something that is very hard and pushes you to your limit or what you think is your limit. I would encourage you, you know, to go do it. And I think what you'll find on the other side of it is something that you won't be able to find any other way or through any other type of sport. So yeah, I think it's a pretty special family that we have, and just yeah, incredibly grateful to be a small part of it.
On your Instagram, it says no, spelled KNOW, no NO limits. No,
Yeah,
no
no
limits.
limits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's pretty cool. But I think what happens is in the sport of ultra is we do really all have internal limits, and ultra gives us a chance to break those,
Hmm.
and our boundaries of what we believe is possible. Like you said just a few weeks ago, you didn't believe this was possible, but by putting yourself in the situation, yeah, man, it's a cool sport. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
chatting with my coach afterwards, my high school coach, and he was saying as well, like I try and relay it, as best I can, and I don't, I'm not the best descriptor of things in general, but yeah, we were chatting for a bit after the other day, and I was telling him like just like how it all felt, and like just the high that you get afterwards. I don't really think it sunk in right away either. I think it took a day or two for me to like get some actual sleep and for my brain to like recover, and then realize like shit, you just won like one of your dream races. But we were chatting and I was like, yeah, like I try to explain to people what it's like to go out there and like really suffer like that and to put yourself out there. But we both came to the conclusion, like no matter how you relay it or how you try and describe it, like until you go out there and experience it for yourself, because everybody has a different experience, but until you go out there and experience it, like I don't know if you could ever truly know what it's like, which is, yeah, I don't know, a pretty cool thing.
Well, Brandon, thanks for sharing everything. And it's good to see you and just connect with you again. Like
Yeah,
we'll
man.
have to catch up, when I come to America in the future next year, I guess. All right. Well, what I'll
Absolutely.
do is I'll let you know when this is out. And I don't know if you want to listen back to it. Like, I
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
listen back to my interviews, or I used to. I don't know. I kind of do. Some people don't like to, but yeah, anyway, I think it's great that you got a chance to share your story, because like you'll forget like the more races you run, and it's always nice to have a record. So it's great to be part of that. All right, man. So anything else that I didn't like kind of like ask you that you want to share, or anything that you feel I missed out on about that race, or anything in general?
No, I think yeah, at least for now, that was a good wrap up of it. And I was
Yeah.
stoked when you called. I was on the drive home Sunday when you called, and I thought I recognized the email at first. I was like, I think this is Krish, but I'm not really sure. And then yeah, you answered, and you were like, dude, congrats. And I was just like, thanks, man. But yeah, so yeah, no, absolutely, it's great chatting with you and great to get to see you again for sure.